What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Trapfish Aquatics. Today I am going to be resealing this aquarium right here. This is a 55-gallon aquarium. I picked this up for 30 bucks, and the previous owner said that it had a leak in the silicone. I was looking at the silicone. It doesn't look too bad, but I'm going to take his word for it and reseal this tank, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it. The reason you want to reseal a tank is it's a lot cheaper than buying a new one. A new 55-gallon tank runs anywhere from 75 to 120 bucks depending where you live. And since I got this one for $30, it's only going to cost me $5 to reseal it. That's $35 for a brand new, to me, 55-gallon tank. So in my opinion, that is very much worth it. It's also a very good thing to know if you have a tank at home and the seam goes on it and it starts leaking water, that you don't have to run out and buy a new one. You can fix it. It does take a little bit of time, about an hour to do it, and then the tank is going to take about 48 hours to fully cure on the silicone, and then you can go ahead and use it again. But I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you guys some tools that you're going to need to do this, and it's not very complicated. So let me show you what you need to do. The first thing that you're going to need is you are going to need a caulking gun. You can get this for a Walmart for around 5 to 10 bucks. If you don't already have it, I already do. So caulking gun is about 5 to 10 bucks. The next thing you're going to need is a tube of 100% silicone. This silicone is, let me get close enough so you guys can see it. This is GE1 silicone, all purpose. You do not want to get GE2 or any kind of silicone that has mold inhibitors or anything like that, because that will kill your fish. You do not want that. You want 100% pure silicone, and that'll be good. The next thing you're going to need is you're going to need a razor blade scraper. You can get this if you don't already have one for about $2–3 at Walmart. You are going to need some blue painter's tape. This is about $1 at Walmart. And you're going to need acetone. This is 100% acetone. This is nail polish remover. This is about $1 at Walmart. And then you're either going to need a rag or some kind of paper towels to apply that acetone, but I'll show you how to do that later. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead. I've got my shop vac right here. I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to get as much of the sand that was in this out as possible. And then I'm going to show you guys how to remove the silicone. Alright guys, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to grab your razor blade. So I've got my razor blade right here on my scraper. And what you want to look for is on the inside of the tank. This is your seam, or not your seam, your seal. This is your seal. And you can see here the silicone kind of peels back when I touch it here a little bit, if you can see that. That's the sign of a failing seam. The rest of the tank isn't really too bad. This is the only one that's like this. But that will eventually leak, which I'm pretty sure this tank already does. So what you're going to want to do is, when you're looking at this end of the tank, you can see that the other piece of glass is right here, and this one butts against the inside of it. So when I run the razor blade in here like this and cut, you can see it cuts right down to the other pane of glass, and then you just run it all the way to the bottom of the tank. And that's going to cut that piece of silicone right out. Now, you're going to have to do that to both sides. Let's take a second pass there just to get the excess. Okay. Now, you're going to have to do both sides. So, let me spin you around here. We'll show you the other side. Okay, here's the other side. Now, this one you have to be careful, because you want to get your razor blade in here just like you did the last one. But the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to go in past this point. Because if you go past this point, you're going to start cutting the silicone that's in between the two panes of glass, and you're going to be cutting the seam of the tank. And the seam of the tank is what holds the tank together. And we're not replacing that in this video, we're just resealing it. So you want to be very, very careful not to do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to stick the razor blade in there just like you did on the last one. And then run it down just like you did on the other side. And you'll see, if I can get the razor blade in here, that silicone is just peeling out and there's nothing left attached to the glass. So I'm going to go ahead and go around the entire tank and cut the silicone out. So you can see that piece of silicone, I just cut that corner out. Now I'm going to have to go back through and do a little trimming to get a little bit of excess off. But for right now, that's okay. I just want to get the heaviest off on the first pass. Okay, there's that corner. There's that corner. There's that corner. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to go around, you're going to do all four corners of the tank, get 100% of the silicone off, as well as the bottom. You want to do the bottom of the tank too. Now the reason you're doing the whole tank, say if just this corner's leaking, new silicone does not adhere to old silicone. So you have to make sure that you redo the whole tank, otherwise you're going to do all this work and reseal the sides or just the bottom, and it's going to leak because the silicone isn't going to seal. You have to do the whole tank when you reseal, and that is the most important part. You have to do the whole thing. Now the only thing I'm not going to do in this video is the top, because you don't overfill this tank all the way up past the rim to where it would overflow over the top of the glass. So what I do is when I run the silicone up the sides, I just kind of rub it up on the lid a little bit there and seal that off a little. So I'm going to go ahead and strip the rest of this tank out, and when I bring you back I'll show you guys how to apply the acetone. And the acetone is just to help remove any excess silicone that was missed with the razor blade. I got all the silicone stripped out. I used the scraper, and then I just grabbed just a razor blade and went back in and did touch up in the corners and scraped a little bit extra on the edges to make sure that 100% of the silicone is gone. I actually feel it a little bit right there. So this is one of the things you really want to make sure is 100% of the old silicone is gone. The minute stuff the acetone will take care of, but the little bit of excess layers that are on there, it won't get all of that, and the silicone won't seal right. So I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see, but there's no silicone left. But if I take this razor blade and run it down along the edge here, I'm still getting little bits of silicone coming off. So you definitely want to make sure all that is gone. That one feels good. And alongside there's some here too. Okay, so you can see the little bits of silicone that are still coming off. You want to make sure you get as much of that off as you can. So once you get as much of that off as you can, check it with your hand. You'll be able to tell if there's still chunks left, because the glass is smooth and the silicone is not. It'll kind of drag in your fingers. I have a little bit right there yet. Alright, that's not too bad. Okay, so applying the acetone. I'm just going to grab a couple paper towels here, fold them up, and just take the acetone, pour it on the cloth, and then fold it in half with your finger in the middle of it, and just use that to rub the seams down. Make sure you rub the seams down pretty good. What this is going to do is it's going to break down the bond between the old silicone and the glass. So if there's any little bits left, it will not only remove the adhesion, but also dissolve the silicone. Now there's not enough here to affect the seam of the tank, so you don't have to worry too much about that. I can see the corner now that he was talking about was leaking, because there's actually sand inside the frame of the tank in this corner as well as this corner. So it was definitely this lower corner that was leaking. So I'm going to have to make sure I get that corner extra good. A little more acetone there. Now I'll apply this acetone a couple coats, probably 3-4 coats, until I'm sure that everything is gone. Like I said, you can't stress enough that you have to make sure that the silicone gets a good seal against the glass. Otherwise the tank isn't going to seal, and you're just going to end up with a big mess on your hands. Now I've resealed tanks this way. 6 times now. This will be the 6th time that I've resealed tanks in this method, and all of them are holding up well. The tanks I've done are mostly 55s. I have one 75 gallon and a 29 gallon. And they're all holding up perfectly fine with no issues. Okay, so once you get your first coat on there, it's going to dry pretty quickly. It only takes a couple seconds for it to dry. You're going to want to switch paper towels because the old paper towel has picked up a lot of the excess silicone, dirt, sand, and debris that's been in this tank. So go ahead and switch and apply a second coat. I think there's a little bit of silicone left right here that I need to get. I can feel something there dragging on the paper towel. Yep. Just a little bit. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off. I'm going to do 2 more coats of acetone on here, and then I'll bring you back and I'll show you how to tape the tank off for silicone. That's pretty easy. All you're going to do is you're going to take the tape and you're going to measure the thickness of the glass, and you're going to make sure you want to put the tape, leave as much of a space there as the thickness of the glass or a little bit more for your silicone seam, but I'll show you that when we get to that step. It's a lot easier to show you than to explain it to you. Alright guys, so we're going to start laying down some tape now. And basically the tape is there to provide crisp, clean lines for the silicone. So you lay the silicone bead, you peel the tape off, and that puts a nice straight line in your silicone. That way it's not just lumped up and wavy. So generally what you do is, you can see the glass here. Now this 55-gallon tank has 1/4-inch glass. And for anybody not in the United States, that's 6 millimeter. So what you want to do is you want to leave a gap the same thickness this way as your glass minimum. I generally do 1.5 to 2 times the thickness of the glass just because it gives a better seal and is stronger. So for this one I'm doing about 1.5 thicknesses of the glass, up to 2. You don't have to be super precise with that. But that's totally your call. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a strip of this tape off, and I'm not going to tear it off from the roll. I'm just going to pull it off and leave it attached. I'm going to hold the bottom part. Now I've already done the bottom of this tank, so let me tip the camera down here. I've already done the bottom of the tank here, as you can see right here, and the tape comes across and stops here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to match up the edges of the tape with the roll, and then extend the roll tape to the top. I'm going to line up the distance I want, so I want it about there. And I'm going to tear it off. So we'll tip the camera back up here. See if we can get a little closer. So there you can see the thickness of the glass. That's about 1.5 to 2 times the thickness. So I'm going to put the camera over here, and you guys can watch me do the whole thing from further back. So as you can see, I've got the tape down here. I'm going to pull the tape out. Stick it on about where I want it. Line it up on the top. About where I want it. Right about there is pretty good. tear it off on the top of the tank. So that's how you lay tape down for the silicone seams. It's not hard, it's a little time consuming. The hardest part is doing the bottom of the tank. But that's how you lay tape down for the silicone seams. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you out in my kitchen and I'm going to show you guys how to properly lay a silicone bead and then use your finger to create the seam, and then we'll come back to the tank and I will show you guys me re-siliconing this tank. Alright guys, so this is just a little mock-up of the corner of a fish tank. So basically what you're going to do is once you've taped it off, you're then going to get your bottle of silicone and you need to cut the tip off. So the tip, you're not going to be able to see it on here, but it has little markings on it as to what size bead you want to have. I usually cut mine off on the 3/8 bead, which is up here. So you can either use a knife or whatever, but my caulk gun has a spot that you can cut it off. So I'm just going to go ahead and snip that off at the 3/8 mark. Okay, and then you want to cut it at a bit of an angle. That way when you're laying the silicone you can put the tip down and lay the silicone nice and even. So at this point you have to poke up into the silicone tube. There is a piece in there that's sealing the tube off from oxygen so it doesn't harden. So my caulk gun has a little point on it, so you just slide it up in there, pierce that, give it a little bit of a wiggle, pull it out, and then that's that. Silicone is open, so I'm going to go ahead, wipe this off, and then you put your silicone in the caulk gun, squeeze it until it's firm, and then gently press on it until the silicone just reaches the tip like that. Okay, and then wipe that off. Now for this example I'm just gonna have to hold it here because these pieces obviously aren't connected. So what you're gonna do is you are going to bring your caulk gun over and you are going to gently squeeze and move the caulk gun. Now I'm obviously doing this a lot slower than I would on a fish tank because I'm doing it one-handed. And lay a nice even bead of silicone. Now with that bead of silicone laid, you can see it in there. You want to take your finger and you're just going to put it into the corner and drag across gently. Now you want to have it pressing into the silicone and then just drag across. So you can see the silicone laying in there. I'm going to take my finger, put it into the silicone, and drag it across. Now, I do have silicone on my finger, so I'm going to wipe that off. And now, if you look, the silicone is nice and sealed into that corner, but you can see there's a little bit overspread onto the tape. So that's all you have to do, and then you can just take the tape, remove the tape, and you have a nice straight silicone seam. I know it's a little difficult to see, but you can see right here it's a nice straight edge going across. The seam is good, and you let that dry for 48 hours and it will not leak. So that's pretty much it for how to do the silicone. So now we're going to go out to the tank and we are going to actually do the tank. Now I can't do it slow to show you guys that well because silicone dries relatively quickly and you don't have a whole lot of time to work with it before it starts getting a skin on it. You only have a couple minutes, and if it starts getting a skin on it, it has trouble adhering to itself. So that obviously won't work for what we need to do. So I'm going to work pretty quick, and I'm going to apply the silicone. I'm going to use my finger to make a seam on it, and then I'm going to remove the tape, and then I will show you guys what it looks like once I'm done doing that. So we'll head back out to the living room now. So just to recap, I've showed you guys how to strip the silicone out. I've showed you how to apply the acetone to dissolve the remaining residue of the silicone, and I've showed you how to tape the tank. So the only thing left right now is to apply the silicone. So I showed you a brief video on how to apply silicone for fish tank purposes. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run beads of silicone. I'm not going to have time to really show you guys what I'm doing, which is why I did the little video before, because this does dry pretty quick. So I'm going to go ahead. Now you want to go around the bottom first and then up the walls. It's just easier to get a good seal that way. So I'm going to go ahead and start that now. Now the only thing I may have trouble with is this tank does have a center brace on it. So I have to try and work around that without getting any air pockets in the silicone. So we're going to go ahead and get started here and get this thing sealed up. Okay, now we're going to go up the sides. Now when I'm getting up to the top corner, I'm giving it a little bit of an extra squeeze because I want to make sure I get enough silicone in the top to seal off the corner. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and go around with my finger and smooth everything out. Starting at the bottom. Okay, and then you come up the corners. Look. Now I'm just making sure there's no mist spots or air pockets or anything like that. And it doesn't appear to be. It looks like there's good silicone on all corners. The bottoms look to be okay. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the tape, and then I'll show you guys the silicone. Now, one thing to be mindful of is this silicone smells like salt and vinegar potato chips on steroids. So it smells like pure vinegar. So be mindful that wherever you have this tank sitting for the next 24 to 48 hours is going to smell very bad. So for me, I'm going to let the tank cure a little bit, a couple hours, 1-2, so it sets. And then I'm going to take it and put it outside in my garage and let it fully cure there. Because I don't want my family or my pets smelling it. Whew. That is strong. Very strong smelling. I don't know if you noticed what I just did there, but I had to actually put my head outside of the tank to take a breath because I can't breathe with my head inside the tank. just because of how strong smelling the silicone is. It is very, very strong. Okay, all the tape is out. I'm just going to re-inspect the seams, make sure nothing got moved. Doesn't look like it did. Looks like the seams are pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and move you guys a little bit closer so you can see what we're looking at here. Alright, so if I can get you guys close enough to see here, you can see that new silicone seam on the corner. I don't know if you'll be able to see it better on this side. A little bit. You can see the silicone. Nice even coating. The whole tank is resealed. So now we're going to wait 48 hours for this thing to fully cure. And then we can set it all up. Alright guys, so that's my video on how to reseal a fish tank. It's not that difficult. It's a little time consuming. That took me about an hour and a half just because I'm making a video. If I was just doing it myself, it would only take me about 45 minutes to an hour. But it's very easy to do. Doesn't cost a lot. If you already have the tools, it's $5 to reseal it. If you don't have the tools, $20 tops. You can reseal a tank. Like I said, I've done this one up to 75 gallons. This here's a 55. But that's 75 in the fish room in there. I resealed that one the same exact way. I've had no issues with it whatsoever. But one thing I do want to say in this video is I don't take any responsibility for your handiwork. If you choose to do this, I am in no way liable for any damage that may occur to your house. I'm not saying it will. I've never had any issues, but just for my own safety. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. You know, let me know what you thought. Let me know if this was very useful information to you guys. I know it's very useful to me. Saves me a lot of money. And it makes it so that I can get good tanks relatively cheap and expand my fish room. So if you like this video, guys, leave a comment down below, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.